Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice to start a bachelor's degree since tuition is 1/3 the cost of four-year schools. More at tncc.edu.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. A spilled drink, an argument over money, domestic violence, all settled with the pull of a trigger. An emotional reaction in the heat of the moment. But it's not the end of the issue, it's only the beginning. The effects of gun violence are not just limited to those who are intimately involved, but also to family, friends, and community. So, how do we stop the violence? The Another View Roundtable shares some thoughts on these and other topics affecting the African American community. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Okay, I know that you all have all heard the term Black Girl Magic, but you should have seen the magic that happened in this studio about 20 minutes ago, because for the first time in more than 2 years, the Another View Roundtable is back in our studio. All the ladies are here, and I am overjoyed. So let's meet our pundits. She's Virginia's relationship expert, radio host, and podcaster, Dr. Alvian Lyons. Alvian!
Oh my goodness! We are back in studio. Listen, y'all, you guys couldn't see it like Barbara was referencing, but it was like an M&M commercial, like they are real. All this delicious chocolate in one place. It's just amazing.
She's the treasurer for the city of Norfolk, Dawn Hester. Hey, Dawn.
Hey, everybody. We are so glad to be here.
Oh,
so
my
glad.
goodness. I tell you, I can't believe it's been 2 years. That is just,
I miss y'all.
I know. She's a professor of political science at Norfolk State University. Carol Pretlow. Hey, Carol.
Hey, I'm glad to be back.
And she's with us all the way from Columbia, South Carolina. Clean comedian and entrepreneur, and she's got something else to share, y'all. Allison Moore. Hey, Allison.
Hey, y'all. Hey.
Lots of changes for you since the last time we got together.
Yep, I am back in corporate America. I am the new director of communications and partnerships at Optus Bank in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm really excited.
And tell the Optus Bank is...
Optus Bank is a proud Black-owned bank. We are a 100-year-old bank, and I'm just super excited to be able to take my Virginia talents over to South Carolina. Yep, but I'm glad to be here, though.
Oh, we are so excited that you were able to be in town and be with us in person
y'all.
today. So
I miss y'all. I miss the listeners.
That is great. Absolutely. Okay, y'all, I want y'all to listen to something.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed.
Dawn, tell me what you were feeling when you heard those words from Vice President Kamala Harris.
I felt thankful that we had a sister who endured what she did and that she got over the finish line. And it was bipartisan. I was very thankful. I was so excited. I was ready to go to D.C., and I did.
I know, and I want to hear about that, too. Of course, we're talking about the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, now Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who will be sworn in this summer once the retiring justice leaves the area. Alvian, your response?
You know, there's that moment where you almost breathe a sigh of relief, right? Because you know what's possible, but there's that element on the inside of you that just fears what could be probable. And so in America, we as people of color often live on that tightrope that just maybe. And so every time something beautiful like that happens, not just because she's a woman of color, but because she's a qualified justice, that represents something, a new possibility realized in America. So I honestly breathed an enormous sigh of relief that who deserved it got it.
Carol, from and I'm looking at this from different perspectives, because you've seen a lot happen in this country to our people, all along. What was your reaction?
Well, I have to admit, and I don't cry easily, but I did cry because I remember Thurgood Marshall and Brown versus the Board of Education, and my dad saying, your life is going to be so much different. And then I was in college when Thurgood Marshall became nominated to the Supreme Court, and I was fortunate enough to go up to D.C. and see him on the bench with my political science class. And then I said, it's going to be a year.
Pull your mask down some.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be a year or two, and we're going to see a black woman on. Well, then Obama came, and I was like, black woman, we going to get this. And then, we saw other women, and I'm not disparaging them, but I was thinking, what about us? What about me? What about black girls in my classes? What about us? And frankly, when Trump got on, I said, this is never going to happen. And so then Breyer decided to step down, and I said, okay, here it is. But my proudest moment was during the confirmation hearings, when no matter how stupid the questions were and how debilitating they were, she was calm, she was direct. And I was like, girlfriend, even if you don't get it, you have represented the black community and African American women at the top of this, and they gonna hear something if you don't get this.
And Allison, you on the other end of the spectrum, the age spectrum, but your reaction?
I had to look up what a justice was. Judge your mama. Y'all judge your mama. I've been busy. I got a new job. I can't be perfect, okay? So I was like, oh, is that what happened with the Latino lady with Obama? Was that? Oh, okay. Whoa. So it was, I feel like that a lot of my generation was like, oh, shoot. Okay, Biden, because we had a little attitude with Biden. But the opportunities have been undeniable. He's been creating spaces for people that look like me in top positions. The trickle down, I feel like, is, even in my new role, as I'm even pushing through my own imposter syndrome, I'm like, well, by the way, though, somebody that look like me is out here in the big court. Y'all better sit down somewhere. So I think, I'm really proud and excited about it. And there has been, like what Alvian said, there's this breath of this sigh of relief, this piece of hope. I got some inspiration, just a little more gas in my engine.
So why do y'all have an attitude with Biden?
Oh, for real?
I'm just curious.
For real?
Yeah, for real.
Oh, yeah, no. Because to me, I can't speak on behalf of everybody, but to me, it's just been some inconsistencies with what we said during the campaign trail and what's been coming out in the wash. Now, I have made the decision to understand this is way above your pay grade, and maybe those were the intentions, but every day something changes and you're not able to do what I'm not able to do everything that I promised when I applied for this job. So, I'm like, I know I said this to you in the interview, but the way y'all set up around here, I need a couple more years to get this done. But in the case of where I can leave this situation feeling like somebody like we are seen, we are heard, he gets the award. And to me, I really feel like it's been plus for him.
Okay. All right. Dawn, you went up on Friday, the day after the confirmation hearing.
Yes.
Tell us about it. How was it?
I got
I'm so
my
jealous.
invitation about 7:30 that evening, because they couldn't send out invitations until after the confirmation. Right? So I'm like, and I was planning to go that way anyway, but not all the way to D.C. I told my husband, I said, I'm up and out of here, and I'm gonna be on that lawn. It was marvelous. It was magical. It felt, I can't even explain how it felt. It felt better to me than when Obama got elected.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and I was there both times he was inaugurated, but it just, because it was a glass ceiling for black women. That we have broken another one. And then to have this justice who we already know as black women has endured much just to get to the federal bench. But then what we saw her go through to get to this point, black women should be mad at what they saw.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we should respond in kind. And I am talking about elections because, I always do. However, to be on that lawn, to hear her speak, to see black men, white women, black women, we were in tears after she spoke because she was just so eloquent and then eloquent. And then when she said, I can't remember the statement, but they showed it all the time about, how many years of justices we've had, how many justices we had, and now we have her making it. And she said, and it's all of us.
Yeah.
It's all of us.
And she talks about in one generation the change between what happened with her parents and the segregation and all of that. And now a generation later, she's at the highest court in the land. It's incredible. So there was a little bit of controversy, Miss Delta Sigma Theta sorority member, Miss Dawn, from a Loudoun County official, I believe, that was concerned about Deltas taking over.
Okay. So there were a lot of Deltas there.
Okay.
But there were a lot
because
of
Judge Jackson is a Delta, right?
So,
is she?
No.
She is not.
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
But I would know that. So no, she's not.
Okay.
So for the listeners who may not know, there are sororities and fraternities from historically black colleges and universities. We're international, so we're everywhere on campuses.
But they were founded on HBCUs.
But we were founded on historically black colleges. And I missed the picture, unfortunately. But at the end of the event, some of the women of Delta took a picture together out on the lawn and posted it. Keisha Lance Bottoms, our president of the national organization, and then just people who were there took this picture. And the chair of the Loudoun County GOP, Republican Party, said that the Deltas were taking over.
How ignorant is that?
Okay, right. And so it
taking over what? That's what I was gonna say. I'm gonna need you to expand on that statement a little bit.
Maybe that's where they were standing.
They
taking over the photo drop.
And, okay, so for many of us, it's like taking over what? We just do what we do. We are elected. We are in nonprofits. We lead organizations. We are working. We just learning. We living and doing everything. But we took a picture together.
And you all are also very politically active in terms of encouraging people to vote and to
as individuals we are.
Yeah. Okay.
Not as an organization because we are a nonprofit. So we can't endorse anybody, but we do support each other when we run. If we think you're qualified.
Right.
Oh my God, got to clarify that.
Absolutely, because y'all didn't even let me on to y'all when I was in college. I'm still here. Me either. They see my potential.
But we also have to say that there's some members of the Divine Nine that are Republicans. So we're not all monolithic, like people seem to want to put us in a category. But are we taking over? We are doing the best we can. We are learning, we are growing, and we're supporting one another as we should as women. So, but he was upset because the chair of somebody, I don't know if it's the school board or somewhere in Loudoun County, is also a Delta.
Okay.
Oh, she triggered him.
Okay. So he was nervous that you all were going to come in and take over all the offices. Exactly.
I seen one of y'all before. Y'all on my school board.
It was, so he went through the CRT mess. He went through,
Y'all were out here spreading like COVID.
It was really,
We don't die, we multiply.
It was really sad.
Got a new variant every month.
So let me ask you guys this one last question, then we're going to move on to our next topic. But so we've got the Supreme Court now. Mm-hmm. What's the next frontier? Where do we need to go in terms of where do we need our presence seen that where we're not at this point? Anybody, anything? Anything jumps out at you, Alvin?
We need to own Instagram. I mean,
Social
if
media.
Elon can buy or
Twitter.
at least offer
To buy
Twitter.
Was anybody surprised at that move
No.
today?
Okay.
For those who are unaware, Elon Musk bought 9% or more, 9.2%, I believe, of the stock
Twitter.
in Twitter stock. It declined an opportunity to sit
Be
on the board.
right.
And then this morning, he offered to
Buy it out,
buy
right?
out the company outright. And so-
$43 billion.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I'm saying that for us to own a social media platform would be a very good next step for women or people of color. So that there is constantly, and I'm not suggesting that social media doesn't allow for everyone to have a voice. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in terms of representation of ownership and C-suite positions and control in spaces that we are not currently represented. Social media is an enormous platform in our world now.
Yes.
So for us to be inside of that space also could be quite significant. So I would say we own a social media platform next.
Okay. Any other area? I mean, I know we kind of got politics going. You know, we're getting women in high positions. You're saying entrepreneurship needs to be the next
Definitely.
area. Any others?
Finance, for sure. To all the way up. I need a little more time so I can figure out what the trajectory is right here because I just got there myself. But you give me a couple months, I'm going to have an answer. It needs to be somebody right at the top of the money tree
Yeah.
that looks like us.
Show me the money.
Okay, Carol?
I agree. Show me the money because politics don't work without money
That is
either.
a fact.
Nothing works without money.
Money.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Darn.
I'm going to stay out of that one.
All right, let's go on to our next topic. This week, unfortunately, we received the news that another person has died as a result of the shooting that happened at Chicho's restaurant on Granby Street in Norfolk. Now, shootings are up 27% in the first quarter, January through March of this year. What do we have to do to stop the violence? I mean, and I know that people are coming at it from all different perspectives, but I'm really curious as to what you all think needs to happen because this violence is disproportionately affecting our community. Alvin, I'll start with you.
Well, I would not purport to be, the all-knowing inside of this conversation because it's certainly one that has brought unbelievably brilliant minds together trying to figure this thing out for years now. And there is a perspective that the only thing that stops a bullet effectively is a real opportunity, right? And so I was just listening to a conversation that Malcolm Gladwell was having around histories and pockets of violence in white America, Appalachia in particular, several years ago in the early 1900s to mid. And what was interesting about that analysis was simply to say that the culture of the space was such that farming and or goat herding, and there is connection here, honor was so huge in those spaces that when dishonor was present, violence was often the response, right? Okay. Because these communities did not have much other than these basic fundamentals that held the culture together. And when dishonor was present, there was mass violence that went on for decades inside of some of these spaces. We talk about violence in particularly Black communities as if it's an anomaly relative to American history, that somehow people of color are more violent than other individuals, and for that reason we've got to figure out what to do with them without having to understand or really analyze the culture in such a way to recognize what is underpinning this that is above and beyond what we're superficially looking at. And we know that historically, we know statistically, the data points to the fact that we see violence more often in low-income environments. We all know that, right? We know that, unfortunately, economics, the color of green is often also connected to the color of brown, or the absence of green is often connected to the color of brown, right? So the less you have, the more important things that other people don't recognize become. So then the question is, what culturally is being threatened such that the response has to be physical? The way that the analysis was done around that Appalachia study by Malcolm Gladwell. So what I wonder is whether or not, because there is not the same spaces in the marketplace, there's not the same access to opportunities, there's not the same upward mobility, is there a different level of powerlessness that is experienced such that violence, because to shoot a gun, one of the things that people often talk about is the rush of power you feel behind that. So what are we chasing the power for? So
and would that also relate then to what to most people seem like such trivial things that make you pull the trigger? Because you're grabbing for some sense
you're
of,
reaching for something.
For some sense of validation.
Absolutely. Or power.
Or power, right.
And when I have to search for power in that kind of reflexive way, I'm responding to the absence of something somewhere else. So I am wondering whether or not we need to be looking at this more psychologically than we are just in terms of the kind of data that we're talking about that has not given us the kind of outcomes that we would think it would, given all the efforts and funds and studies that have been done thus far.
Allison, from a younger woman's perspective, I mean, when you hear about all this violence and you see these things happening because, you're in the club and you spilled a drink, and the first thought is to pull the gun as opposed to arguing it out or walking away or whatever. What are people talking about? Why is that happening so much?
I don't know if I can say that people are speaking to like the trivialness when you're just talking about that of violence. But in my circles, when there's violence, the conversation is, I don't like how the narrative looks like it's just violence that's happening in the Black community. So that's already, and Alvian already talked about that, right? The other piece or point, way that we talk is, put some resources on it. In some spaces, I'm not talking about overall, but in some spaces where there is violence and there's also a lack of resources and opportunities, these people would be a lot more occupied with, they have some money and they have some education and a job than if they were conditioned and this whole, savages, and they're made. And people are hungry, they're hopeless, they're depressed, they're put in a cage over time. They get violent. They are fighting over, we're like, man, they shot somebody over a pair of shoes because they're the only pair of shoes that they had. And somebody mama did some things or whatever so that 8th grader could have those shoes. There's the honor that Alvian was talking about. There's some other pieces that goes with it. But with resources, it'd be a whole different conversation. My answer is money. That is my answer. All money.
But Dawn, let me ask you this then. How does this play to the perception also, and I'll use Norfolk as an example. As soon as the violence hit Granby Street, there was one response.
You ready?
I'm ready. Versus the violence when it hit Young Terrace with the 5 women who were shot fairly recently.
Okay, well, that's the overall issue for me. Black people killing black people, no matter where they are, it should be a problem for everybody, no matter what your race or your color, because it is your city. And it is a reflection on your city. And so people who are looking at the news to see where the crime is, they don't know the Young Terrace is a predominantly Black community. Granby Street, they know that's the business district. So now that it has hit Granby Street a couple times now MacArthur, Here we go. We're going to try to put a plan in place. Well, our former chief was trying to put plans in place all along. You have had council people like me from back in 1996 who was trying to put resources in so that we could, one, build our communities, make them healthy, make them whole, make sure that we were educating all of our children so that they were able to lift themselves up, out, learn, to be able to get these jobs, to make a difference in their lives. But we don't put the resources out. It takes money. It takes time. It takes commitment to your citizens, because all of our families don't have the same things. And if you remember, there was a big fight with the school district in reference to trying to equitably distribute resources, because some of our schools have majority students who have income and their parents had computers. And when they were the school board was trying to shift the resources where they were needed for parents and families who did not have those computers, there was a big fight about that. Yeah. When they were trying to move teacher assistants around. So all of those things have been tried in the city of Norfolk, but they all got stopped. And they got stopped by those who control the purse string. Now that it's on Granby Street, even though it's black people that got shot, it's still Granby Street, which is still an economic corridor. So yeah, all that's wrong, but all that's a part of the history. It does take resources. It does take time.
Carol?
No, what bothers me is why we have the same battle about resources over and over and over again. And Dawn, you know more about this than I. When you're looking at the state and the budgeting for schools and for housing and all of that, why is there always such disparity? It's not like this disparity just suddenly emerged on Granby Street. It has always we do it over and over and over again, and we don't seem to learn. And that's what I don't understand.
Well, it depends on who is in power. And we've been talking about that. Yeah. Who is in charge of developing the purse string in your city?
And how we're investing. So I would just like to be clear that we're not saying hand money to black people.
No.
And that's not fixing because that's what some people hear.
Okay, thank you.
And that's
clarifying.
not what we're saying at all.
Hang on one second, Alvin. If you're just joining us, we're talking current events with the Another View Roundtable relationship expert, Dr. Alvian Lyons, Norfolk City Treasurer Dawn Hester, NSU political science professor Carol Pretlow, and Director of Program Communications
and Partnerships. Come see me if you want to invest in a black bank. I like where this is going because I got a solution on where we could put this money.
That's Allison Moore, you all. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. How would you stop the violence in our communities, in all of our communities? Alvian, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. The thing that I think that is important is that we can't look at this myopically, and we can't look at this in just these little bitty silos, right? Mm-hmm. We have to look at this in terms of the arc, right? Like we didn't just get here all of a sudden. We strategically found ourselves in this place by decisions that were made in terms of where we put resources, where we took resources, programs that got funded, programs that didn't get funded. When we decided, and one of the things I will go to is education, when we decided to stop funding trade in K through 12, is when we started to see this change. Because when in America you could work 40 hours a week doing honorable work, and that was not seen as less than, you could take care of your family, we had less violence then. But when we became obsessed with college being the answer, and I'm a pro-education person, but everybody is not designed for traditional education. So when it became that you had to do 4-year degree to be anything, we started to divest in the hands-on kinds of education that allowed for people who are naturally tactile tactile and visual to create and to serve their communities. When we took that away and we said that the only way to be something in America is for you to have a 4-year degree, and then we figured out the 4-year degree is like having a 2-year degree. And now we just keep rising that, and then people started to figure out that I don't want to participate in this either. So then we've got tech giants, but that's exclusive to certain parts of our communities also. So we continue to create these spaces that exclude or include certain kinds of folks, not just based on race, but exclude and include certain kinds of folks. And now people have to find other ways in order to be able to establish themselves and to have what was supposed to be part of the American dream, to know that you mean something in America and you contribute in a real way, and you can be proud of what it is that you bring to the table, and you can look your kids in the eye. When you don't have that anymore, you find new ways, going back to the psychology, you find new ways to be able to garner power, and they're often not productive. So what we need to be talking about is how we stop working on just fixing it right here. We also need to make sure that we're preventing the next generation that will be the generation that we will have to fix it for. So this is not let's treat this just as an ER and stop the immediate bleeding. What we need to make sure is we don't have people running to the ER next month, next year, next generation. What are we doing to prevent that?
I want to go back to something that Allison said when she said savages are created. I think about the children and the trauma that our children see on a daily basis as they're not only from the streets or what's happening outside their front door, but inside their homes also. And even from the video games and TV. I mean, I think at some point, or I'll ask you guys, if you think that at some point the dramatization, if you will, of the violent life is, and then real life, it's two different things, but I think that they become immune at a certain point. Dawn. Somebody help me out here.
All of us.
Yes.
But you do become immune because you live what you see, and then you respond based on what you see, whether it's at home or at school. So we do have to teach better. Our education system is the same as it was when I was there, except you got a computer now. But it's still the same. Can't have that. I don't know why we're still doing it the same way.
Yeah.
It's not effective. And if you look at the data of our young men and women who are committing crimes, the data will show you that their educational level is low. So even when the opportunity for the training program comes up, where all you have to have is a high school diploma, you have a high school diploma, but your skill set is still low. And so then you're not able to take advantage of this training. And we don't help bring you up, because you could take advantage of it if the program was set up so that I'm going to get your skill set ready so you can read this, learn this, and then you'll be able to do the job. Because we know that once we start working and doing it, we can figure it out. But we might not be able to read all that stuff to pass that test on that piece of paper. But if I read the test to you and you answered the questions, you could pass the test. So we have to do things a lot different when it comes to education. But they are immune. Some of them are immune. But I am going to go back to, it is all about power and control. I want to feel worthy, and I want to feel valued. And right now, this is what I see, and so this is how I do it. And when Allison was talking about the one pair of shoes, it's the one pair of good shoes they got. Because I see brothers now, and I'm just calling out the men, but they have tennis shoes that they use for when they're on the court. Right. And then they change their shoes, and they're carrying the shoes used on the court to go out the door. So, the whole concept has changed of value. What do we value?
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Michael joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Michael. You're on the air.
Hi. I noticed in your beginning the show, you were celebrating the elevation to the Supreme Court of a black woman who claims to be a black woman, and yet she cannot define what a woman is. And you have said, what will our next frontier be to break the glass ceiling? And it seems to me that the number one objective of breaking the glass ceiling should be to change the statistics that show that 90% of blacks in urban areas are born illegitimate.
Mr. Michael, excuse me. We're going to, we got your point. We'll let our roundtable respond. Thank you so much for the call. I can't. Alvin, I'll let you respond because I can't go there today.
Well, listen, the thing that I think perhaps Michael may not be familiar with or may not be thinking about in his response, I don't presume to know you, Michael, at a heart level, and I am quite okay with that. I will say that politics is a very interesting thing, and there was a time in our history that the decision around who was going to be on the Supreme Court would see bipartisan support to the numbers of, 22, 25 individuals on the opposite party side supporting the individual. But unfortunately, in the decline of what has become our new modern politics, we spend more time with gotcha questions than we do really competency questions. The question about whether or not KBJ, as I will lovingly call her, knew what it meant to be a woman wasn't really to define that. It was really to make sure that there was a soundbite that was going to be able to be exported to create the next new controversy over whether or not she is for or against progress, identity politics, not identity politics, pro-LGBTQ, anti-LGBTQ. And she answered the question in the most intelligent way to do so, given her understanding of what the answer would have cost her. So for her to say that I am not prepared to define that was simply to leave room so that we weren't going to be having a fight about manhood, womanhood, not womanhood, how we define and don't define. And so it would be, I could understand your passion a little bit more if we were having a legitimate Supreme Court analysis and we were past politics in America and we just really wanted to choose people based on the content of their character and their true level of professional competency. But unfortunately, we've devolved from that place, Michael. And we have to be mindful of what it is that we say because we have forces at work that are more interested in our destruction than they are in our construction.
And I would hope, Michael, that you would not be a part of adding to destruction of people, but lifting people up. And so 90% of children born in urban areas, I'm one of those. You just
called illegitimate.
You call me illegitimate, and I've worked very hard. All of us have in here to get to where we are. And so, whether I was born illegitimate or not does not have anything to do with my life as I grow. And so, to degrade me like that, it hurts. And I hope that you will think about that. And maybe the conversations that you have with others. And maybe you need to talk to more black people and learn who we are and that we have feelings, that we work hard, that we want more out of life. But there is an element, just like in the white community and Asian community and all
Hispanic,
the
all the
communities.
Exactly.
You have an element that is challenged. And that's the easiest word I can use.
And Michael, I apologize. I probably should not have reacted as swiftly as I did, but in the sense that, as a single parent, my child was not illegitimate. My child is legitimate, and she is a working, productive citizen in this country. And I just think that for people to categorize single parenthood in that way is wrong.
And let me add one more thing. what I think that is even more rich in the choice of doing so is it's often people who would call themselves pro-life that encourage the propagation of illegitimacy when someone chooses life. Every mother who decided to have that baby chose life. And in her choosing to call that child illegitimate is hypocrisy relative to the pro-life position that our patriots maintain. So let us decide that if we're going to be pro-life, let us be pro-whole life, and let us be pro-narrative, and let us be pro-encouragement, and let us be pro-invitation to the table. Otherwise, you are hollow in your statements.
Let's talk to Margaret from Gloucester. Hi, Margaret. You're on the air.
Hi there. This is rather simplistic relative to everything that's been discussed, but I listened to an interesting program, at least part of it, on NPR the other morning, and it related that in violence-prone areas in cities where they had planted green spaces, and I don't know whether they were gardens or just ornamental trees and so forth, but anyhow, there was a decrease in violence by 60%, and I don't know the specifics of it, but green trees are considered very therapeutic in a variety of situations. So the other point I wondered about, would it be possible to buy back many of these guns and get them off the street, and then if somebody is caught with a gun, to increase the penalties for it? So we have a kind of a different situation.
Thank you, Margaret, for the call. There are buyback programs in every city in Hampton Roads, if I'm not mistaken, and they are announced every so often where people can bring their guns to the police departments, and the city will buy back the weapons. The problem is the people a lot of times who are using these weapons in a bad way are not necessarily the ones that are going to turn those guns in to the police to to get the money for them. So, I wanted to ask you guys about, there are a lot of programs that people have put into communities to try to stop the violence. I was so saddened this week, my hometown of Baltimore, they have a program, Safe Streets. And in the past year, 3 of their leaders, these are what they call credible messengers, people who have been in prison, people who have seen the other side, if you will, who have strong reputations in the community, good reputations in the community, and they work to mitigate violence and to stop beefs and so forth. And 3 of their leaders in Baltimore have been murdered in the past year. So these are people who are volunteering or working within their communities to try to make a change. I know that Portsmouth has a program similar to that. Norfolk is looking at a program. What do you guys think? Do you think programs like that work, or are we do we have a section of society that's just so angry that even that's problematic? Carol, we haven't heard from you in a minute.
I know, I'll have to admit, I don't know a lot about that program, but I do think that even in the big picture, you might say it doesn't work, but every little step or every little contribution will make a difference. So it's better than not trying anything. Let's try it. Let's work with it, and then that doesn't mean that we're going to ignore other programs and other policies and all of that. But this is one of several.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I'm familiar with the programs. They can be very effective when they are supported appropriately and nurtured in the right spaces, right? So when they exist kind of as a bubble onto themselves somewhere, they tend to be less effective because there's an isolationism that exists, right? But when they exist nurtured inside of other programs that allow for these messengers to create real connections when they're meeting someone who needs the support, who needs financial assistance, who may need medical assistance,
and that they can refer them to places where they can get
it. So when those are, when they're properly integrated into a system, they can be very effective. When they're not, they are less effective. And I will say that it is also important to do the due diligence around who the credible messenger is, because just like any addiction, for instance, violence can be an addiction also. And criminality can be an addiction for some people. Same thing with picking poor partners. When you're so used to trauma, you can be attracted to it until you're healed of your traumas. So even with credible messengers, the due diligence around making sure that the messengers themselves don't find themselves drifting back into the life they came from is also very important. They need support as well. So sometimes we've had credible messengers that were lost because they ended up getting back involved in the community they were trying to help heal.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there was a study with Johns Hopkins University, and they were saying that very point, that the credible messengers needed to have the support too, so that when they're out there in the community and they're dealing with folks, that they are supported through that.
I think that situation in Baltimore too, I think that's somebody trying to do power and control.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't have our,
right.
We're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Exactly.
But so you have to find out who it is that's the person
so
trying
they
to
gotta
control
work.
that.
It seems to me that law enforcement and credible messengers and education, all of it needs to work in tandem, and it's siloed.
That's life.
Good point. Let's talk to Shirley in Portsmouth. Hi, Shirley. You're on the air.
How are you?
Okay.
Good morning to the ladies and to everybody. I love your conversation. I did want to just interject as I saw you were talking about the resources needed to curb violence. But I come from I was able to participate in a program called the Nehemiah Project. And basically we got tired of children being shot in schools, and we got tired. And the 40 churches was all denominations. So there were 3 goals, was to do housing, affordable housing. The other one was to change our schools. And the other thing was, of course, to connect with the agencies that do policies and do it in your communities. And what we found is that over the years, we also created within our schools advisories, which meant that we sort of separated them by gender. And we were able to really have topics that we talked about and gave children a safe place for the children to be. And I just think that I'm thinking about what is it that communities can do. Because without some of the resources, sometimes I find the resources that come to our communities only target certain people, and it doesn't get around to everybody. So what I know is for sure is that when I left as the principal, we were graduating 95%. Kids were going on to college. And the level of violence had really curbed, which we really didn't have any. And I think that if we don't have ways in which we can create groups in our communities that also know what the needs are and can fight for those needs. And I think that when I'm down here, it really just seems like that people are not willing to change. We then created small schools, which we found that was much better for a lot of our children. And so I'm saying is that I think that we have to get more people engaged in the struggle to fight for the right kinds of things that are needed. And if we don't do it in our schools, like the advisories that we had, which meant that a teacher had this group of kids of 10 up until the time they graduated. So they were able to communicate with the parents as well as with the children.
Okay.
And, of course, restorative justice became a really major part of our school.
Thank you, Shirley, for the call. I want to give enough time for the panel to respond. Thank you so much for the call. Allison?
So there are many different types of resources and programs and et cetera. But one of my strategies is how do we push money around in the community? I want to get specific with what I'm saying. And my recommendation, there are multiple ways, but obviously I'm working for a black bank now. I said that 15 times. I just make sure my boss here, I'm out here promoting. I got a job now. But also, too, really, home ownership. And so specifically when I'm like, y'all super, super duper rich people, because some of y'all dump your money into a black bank, because it's black banks that are going to give little old Allison's loans for homes.
Because you can't get it from the other banks.
Because I cannot get it from the other banks. And we've seen that in the news. And even me specifically, you all, the listeners, everybody's been on the journey with me. I am absolutely 100% the stereotype or, a case study, right? I'm a black woman. I got education. I'm a single mom. I have 3 children. I was trying to do entrepreneurship. My money was very on the low income side. If it weren't for the fact that I knew people, I was popular because of the comedy and things, I would not have had the exposure. Therefore, I would have stayed ignorant to the opportunities. It's not because I'm not competent. But so with me, even I'm on commercials in the community, and I couldn't get a $5,000 loan for my TV show. I walk in the bank, they know me, they love me. Oh, girl, we saw you on the, we love you, but you ain't getting this loan. But a black-owned bank who understands the single parents with the illegitimate children and all of that stuff, they don't dismiss the opportunities to make $100,000 loan in a ghetto, quote unquote, red line community, whereas the bigger banks, they would. So then you're like, okay, well, that's where people who are like, these companies, they can put money into banks. They can help so that the banks can then push the resources in the communities where people are being told no. But what about the other people who may not be super rich? Are y'all following me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so then for regular, quote unquote, people with, we got the salaries and the income that we have, we need to be spending our money in these black-owned businesses. We need to be buying black intentionally, not because we don't care about white. This is not for y'all. If y'all are triggered by this, then this is not for you. But for people who are saying, well, what can I do in my part to help create these resources? You can make sure that the family next door to you has some money that they can spend so that they are not even tempted to go and rob a grocery store because they don't have food, that there's money circulating in the community, whether that's you buying CDs and you're saving it in a space that you know is funneling money in the community, or you yourself are walking into the bodega or to the hair supply store, or to being a little inconvenienced, being, okay, we're not getting Target service because this person only got $16 worth of product. And that way that we're circulating money. Those are the type of programs, or that's the way that I'm talking about deploying resources. But of course, the therapeutic things for the kids, giving them activities, giving them et cetera. But their parents have to work 4 and 5 and 6 jobs to hold on to that apartment. They can't get to your PTA meeting. Stop acting like these parents don't care. They can't get there. They don't have a car. They only have one grocery store. Okay, shut me up. Shut me up. I'm going down. I'm supposed to be the comedian.
Well, we only got 2 minutes left anyway in the show. So I know the hour has gone by just that quickly. Real quick, who wants to have a final thought? Dawn.
We're living a life, and we all have to live it together. And I hope that we will work together to make a difference for everybody in our communities.
Absolutely. Alvin?
There should never have been an argument or an issue with the statement Black Lives Matter, because the truth is that we needed to hear it. We, Black people, needed to hear it, because the worst thing that happens to us is that you begin to believe that you don't matter. And for us to allow what was said in terms of our lack of value because we're illegitimate, when that penetrates the interior, when you don't believe life matters, then you're not going to value life. So we should all be screaming that Black Lives Matter, not for politics, not for the movement, but for the intrinsic value of humanness that says, because I matter, that's why I'm not pulling this trigger. That's why I'm pursuing this education. That's why I'm developing these relationships. That's why I'm investing in my communities, because I know I matter. That statement should never have been a problem for any human, any American, any patriot, because we want an America where we all have the potential, not equal outcomes, equal opportunities because of the value of life.
Carol, you get the last word.
Mine is piggybacking on yours, and I believe to say Black Lives Matter, treat me like I matter by funding education, by helping people who are paying student loans. I have students whose interest rates on their student loans are so high that they will be 20, 30 years getting rid of it. That should not be. We want more Black teachers, but then on the other hand, the cost of an education is so high that people are like, oh no, I don't want to teach because I'm not going to make enough money. So it all comes together.
It all comes together. No, that is not a problem. Ladies, it is so rich to have you guys here in person. I am so appreciative of that. And audience, I also want to thank you for the privilege of your time this hour. And if you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, please visit our website. It's anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. And you can find us on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. And one day I'm going to be on Alvian's space where she's going to buy that social media company.
I'm definitely going to be an investor.
This is Holy Week for our Muslim, Jewish, and Christian brothers and sisters. sisters. Ramadan, Passover, and Easter are all celebrated this week. May God provide blessings on us all, and we wish you all peace and joy. And you notice we're playing the happy birthday song because Lisa's birthday is tomorrow, y'all. Happy birthday, Lisa. We love you. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer. And Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Do me a favor this week and practice kindness. It will make our world a much better place. Let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice to start a career. Gain skills in fields like cybersecurity and education. More at tncc.edu.